We explain the rise of the nation-state of Korea. Korea's geographic location of being connected to China on a peninsula has been a major factor of its past, present, and presumed future history. Korea served in many capacities, sometimes politically ruled by the Chinese, sometimes merely the vessels of disseminated Chinese culture, sometimes the middle ground between China and Japan, learning all they could from China and then passing it on to Japan, and vice versa, after adding unique features to both. As we discussed before, Japan probably more closely relates to Korean culture. The people themselves most likely migrated there from Siberia, and then it was the Han Dynasty in China that noticed them and then took control of the north for 400 years out of Pyongyang. It was the Han that taught them Confucianism, filial piety, and new farming techniques. Chinese missionaries spread Mahayana Buddhism, and Korean monks went to India and China to learn more about the faith and philosophy. Korea would eventually break into three kingdoms up until about 700 AD CE, with Silla on the Japanese-facing coast, Baichi on the Chinese-facing coast, and Goryeo in the north. In 688, Tang Chinese backed the Silla state in conquering the other two. The Silla would rule for about 300 years and make advances in metalworking, astronomy, and textiles. They continued to reflect Chinese government style with Confucianist civil service exam. The Silla even built a Confucianist-based civil service academy. But unlike China, only the wealthy elite could take the test. Women and peasants were put in the lowest ranks of society in Korea. Koreans spread Buddhism and spent a lot of treasure building Buddhist temples, and also building their new capital, which they modeled after China. Then typical dynasty stuff happened, and the Korea dynasty was set up by a rebel leader. Under his dynasty, they tried to be more independent of China. Even though they did things like adapt block printing, they turned to metal printing. However, their paintings still reflected Chinese influence, as did their literature. They did add unique flares, like taking Chinese porcelain and creating celadon, which is blue-green. Then the Mongols came. The Mongols destroyed Korea's industrial base and forever lost the secret to making celadon. Although they managed to hold off the Mongol invasions, they became a vassal state to the Mongol Yuan dynasty in China for 80 years. In 1392, General Yi overthrew the Mongols and set the Chosun dynasty, which would last until 1910. They moved Korea to more Confucianist beliefs than Buddhist. They also tried to move farther from Chinese influence, even setting up their own writing system known as Hangul, which is a phonetical alphabet with 24 letters, 10 vowels, and 14 consonants. Much of the early years of the Korean dynasty were marked with royal feuds and bloodshed. Scholars critical of the government were killed, queens were poisoned, family members fought family members. Unification of the dynasty came when a common enemy attacked. In the 1500s, Japan invaded Korea on their way to take over Ming China. Japan launched 2 wars, and both times were repelled by Korea's new metal turtle ships.